Welcome to this sort of special episode of our language. It's not being uploaded in the usual schedule. You will still get a video on Tuesday, but I haven't looked at my schedule in a little bit. I've done the last bit of the tinkering, the long process of tinkering with the sound changes to make the modern language sound how I want. I estimate about 4 to 5 hours of work has gone into this, partly because I just have a really complex set of sound changes, and partly because it's tinkering. It's just a lot of little changes, and most of the work gets redone or deleted in the tinkering process. Here's what we've got. Everything in yellow is something I've changed. And I'll explain every one of these changes so you know exactly what's going on from the previous videos. So, I've just renamed the fricativization to lenition. It's whatever. Actually, I should do that everywhere. I decided to simplify stop clusters. So, when you have 2 stop consonants in a row, the second one becomes the first one. What ends up happening after that is that geminate consonants, I should put this, geminate stops. Degeminate between vowels. So, in a sense, if you had the word ete and the word etke, ete is going to become ethe later, and then etke is going to become ete. So you'll keep the T there. Just stuff like that, just to get pronunciation. It's just one of those things that I came across when I was building a bunch of fancy words, and I was like, oh, I should do something about this situation. That's what this next one is do, laryngeal cluster simplification. So, because any consonant can start and stop any syllable, I was getting words like arha, or alha. And I was like, no, I don't want 2 laryngeals next to each other. So if you have 2 laryngeals in a row, the second one just drops. You just aren't pronouncing it. So arha just becomes arha. Easy stuff like that. Palatalization. I realized I didn't have an E vowel at all in the whole language at this point, and so that made no sense. So I changed it to assimilating before the front vowel that it did have, A. That's all that was. This is just my description of how the vowel coloring works. You feel free to pause the video and read it if you want. Schwa raising. Gone. You'll see why here in a second. Oh, here's why. So here's all of my vowel, like all my diphthong simplification. It's an obnoxious list. This is what took 4 to 5 hours. This is also why I changed the schwa. I made it no longer be a high vowel before all of this happens, because I didn't like the changes that were coming out of that. And the changes that I did end up liking made more sense if schwa was still a mid vowel rather than a high vowel. And so that's why I got rid of that. Here's the general rules. E and U become y and w after vowels. We're making diphthongs. We call it a rising diphthong when the glide is at the end. It rises up into the glide. Mid non-central vowels become glides. So A and O become, so A-a becomes ya and O-a becomes wa, basically. And then, yes. I need to actually have that say plus low, because it actually only happens before low vowels. It does not happen before schwa. Rising diphthong vowel shift, so then a lot of vowel shift after you get these glides in there. Schwa is going to assimilate to whatever the previous vowel. So if you have any vowel followed by schwa, you just get a long form of that vowel. Then schwa is going to assimilate to a following glide. So it's going to be fronted in front of y, and it's going to be backed in front of w. Trans-fronted diphthongs. That is to say, diphthongs where the vowel and the glide are on different sides one's front, one's back, just become vowels, and they get the frontedness from their glide. So O becomes O, Oi becomes A, etc. And central vowels become fronted or backed depending on the glide. Basically that ah, so I becomes A and ow becomes O. That's all that means. Falling diphthong. So a falling diphthong is the opposite. The glide comes first. You fall down from the glide. E and U become Y and W like normal. Our schwa actually dissimilates before the vowel. So becomes way and O becomes yo. It's sort of dissimilating. Becomes front and front of back vowels, back and front vowels. And then you get that fun Ea becomes ya and Oa becomes wa. Falling diphthong vowel shift. Here's where stuff happens. This is where your schwa dissimilates from a glide in front of it. And when it comes in front of ah, it's going to do the same thing it did earlier, where whenever you had a vowel and then a schwa, it becomes a long vowel. Schwa and then ah just becomes a long ah, is what ends up happening there. I should actually probably just say that. That's probably better linguistics. Better, I guess, phonetic transcription. Intervocalic glide gemination. What this means is if you have L-A, it becomes L-wa. That glide becomes the first consonant of the preceding, or of the following syllable. That came in really handy. So I kept it. And that's all those vowel shifts. Okay, anytime you have a long vowel, it just gets reanalyzed as a stressed vowel. So ah, so if you had a word like hola, it just becomes hola, hola, with a stress on that ah vowel. Diphthong stress shift. Basically, if you have a or yay or o or wo or oo or woo, anything like that where it's the same frontedness, it just gets reanalyzed as stress on the vowel. So yay becomes a becomes a, ye becomes e with a stress, things like that. Low vowel assimilation. Ah can no longer appear in a diphthong. It has to become a or o depending on the frontness or backness of the glide. So I becomes a, owl becomes o, basically. Do I need this written twice? Those are identical, aren't they? Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I need that written twice. I think, yeah, that's just as though. Oh, nope. The difference is because it's either before, or it's either after the glide or before the glide. So yeah, ya becomes yay, things like that as well. Oh, I'm glad I didn't delete that. Schwa dissimilation. So again, is assimilating, is dissimilating. That became a theme throughout all of these sound changes. If schwa is followed by a non-central vowel, so if it's followed by a, o, e, or u, it's going to become a or o, the opposite frontedness. So something like o becomes eu, but something like a becomes oe, just to dissimilate. Final vowel simplification. I decided not to have my final vowels all become I and ah, partly because I don't have I anymore. But I'm realizing I didn't actually delete this rule. I made final vowel simplification, so any vowel minus stress minus I don't want to say plus mid minus high minus low becomes plus high at the end of a word. That's right. That's how that worked. So basically that means if A and O aren't stressed, they become E and U at the end of a word. So toe becomes, or tope would become topi. Just they're making fewer distinctions among their vowels at the ends of words in unstressed syllables. And I should do this actually, because one of the sound changes I need to make. Do I? Ooh, now here's the question. Am I going to differentiate between final and final ah? It seems obnoxious to do so. Topa. 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 Yeah, that seems like too much. I think I'm going to have all of my ahs. Do I have everything go away from the center? Tope, topi. Topu, topo, topu. Topa, topa. 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 I think I'm going to have everything raise in that way. So actually final ah is going to become so now I need to write that in. So if a vowel is minus stress and plus low, it is going to become minus low when it is word final. And now I need to write down what that means. So basically that's going to mean that non-central mid-vowels raise non-central, so I need to write unstressed non-central mid-vowels raise word finally. Unstressed low vowels, unstressed non-central mid-vowels, and unstressed low vowels raise word finally. So A becomes E, O becomes oo, and ah becomes I'll live with that. Initial stress generation. If a word does not have stress somewhere in it by this point, the speakers of the language analyze it as having initial stress. It does not apply to some particles, so I don't think like my adpositions are probably not going to be stressed, things like that. Pronouns probably won't be stressed unless there's an emphatic form, but then of course I'll probably make the emphatic form have a vowel, something added to it that's a stressed vowel, something like that. And then schwa fronting. Here's where the schwa changes. If schwa ever gets stressed, it becomes a front high rounded vowel, ü. Otherwise it just stays which means schwa actually stays in the language in any position except for stressed. And yeah, so that is all of our sound changes, and that's it. That's the end. Finally, I made this video because we're done. All I want to point out is if you're not aware of what the sound change applier from Zompist is, then I want to show that to you and show you how, just a quick overview of what I've been doing. Here's the Zompist sound change applier. You can see the URL in the top there. What it does is it lets you set up all of your sound changes, and then you can input proto words, and it will spit out modern words in your language. The way it works is you set up your sound changes. I'm not going to do a whole video on exactly how to do this, just a quick show here what I've been doing. You can always go to the Help Me tab, and it does wonders. Playing around with this is probably the best way to get used to it. But if you want, this is all of the sound changes put into the format that the sound change applier likes. Part of it is you set up these categories. So anytime you see a capital letter anywhere over here, it's referring to an entire category. So if you see this capital H here, I've told it that capital H is for our laryngeals. If you see a K here, capital K, then you know that capital K refers to all of our stops, basically. Whereas the lowercase k is just the lowercase k. No big problems there. I never use the rewrite rules. If I ever want to do rewrite rules, what they're useful for is, let's say if I put in like tote, Tothi. Tothi is the word that we get back out. I'm not going to spell it that way in my romanization. That th sound is 100% going to become a th. So what I would end up doing is at the end here, I'll just add sound change rules. So this says that everywhere you see a theta, make it a th, Tothi. I don't use the rewrite rules, I just put it into the sound changes. It's fine. But the nice part is, so say, if I want to add some proto words, I can show you what they become real quick here. There's a few that I set up for this exact moment. So chete becomes ifi, esrode becomes eshrodi, aloe becomes ali, porkoch becomes pilti, ranpogla becomes lanbogla, geachmer becomes shemo. So we were getting some shemo, you're getting some real sound changes here. Geachmer becomes shemo. And then here's what it looks like when you have like dekod as a base word, and then a few sort of nonce affixes. So tekod plus lum becomes teothum. Tekod plus o becomes teodu. Tekod plus he becomes teodi. Tekod plus por becomes teodo. And tekod plus rech becomes teode. And so you can see the accent is shifting around from teodu to teodo. All the sound changes. Here's our retroflexes. We've got all kinds of stuff going on. We've got our laryngeal fricatives. You can see the fronting of the schwa, all kinds of stuff. But I just want to show you what this looks like. I usually have it report which rules apply while I'm tinkering with stuff, which means that I can look at chete, and it tells me chete, and it tells me exactly what rule is applying to it, and it lets me see them all in order, and that way if I get something I don't like, I can look through here and say, where's it going wrong? And that's when I start tinkering up here with the sound changes. I am going to put the categories and the sound changes in the description of this video. So if you want, you can also play around with the Xompus sound change plier with this language, and you can kind of get a good feel for how the vocabulary of the modern language is going to look. So, all that being said, we are here at the end of phonology. In the next video, I can actually start going through building the language. This is the payoff moment where I finally know what it's going to sound like. So now I can start making words and syntax and morphology and things like that. So thank you so much for sticking through all the phonology. This language ended up being a lot more complex than I thought it was going to be. Oh my goodness, the last language I worked on was nowhere near this complicated. And this sound change plier is going to be indispensable because I find it very difficult now to look at a proto word and know exactly what it's going to become. I did not know this would become Lanpogla until I hit apply. I knew little bits here and there. My biggest difficulty is I can't predict the stress very well. And that's, I'm sure I'll get better at it as we make the language, but enough rambling, enough rambling. Now you see everything we've got for our phonology. Icarus out.